Shaquille's in Birmingham. Hi, Shaquille.
Hi, Mr. Swarbrick. How are we?
I'm very well, sir. Now, am I led to believe that you are one of the, or were one of the main coordinators of that protest in Birmingham yesterday?
Well, I will answer your question by saying yes, but I would like to further add that I actually agree with you. We do have a problem, and the problem is we have gentlemen like who just came on saying that it was justified, the school should have been bombed because it was an IRGC school. So, yes, and I've actually come on, and I'm a first-time caller, just to clarify some misconceptions that you had. And the first misconception was that there was a protest being held in support of a regime or a political class yesterday in Birmingham, when in actual fact, a protest was held because a mosque in the city of Birmingham for the last 6 months, every Thursday at 6 p.m., has been experiencing hate crimes where pro-Israeli Iranians have been coming with Israeli flags with copies of the Quran, chanting that we should urinate on the Quran. I'd furthermore, before giving you a chance to interject, I'd furthermore just like to clarify that you mentioning one of our candidates, who's Brother Shahid Butt, who's standing in the Spark Hill ward in the Hall Green constituency, where I stood at the last general election and came second, that he's a convicted terrorist. What we must understand, and I hope all your viewers who are listening will understand, that he was convicted in a country that we do not recognize their judicial system. We do not recognize Yemen or the kangaroo courts that they had where Mr. Shahid Butt was convicted. And furthermore, I feel it very, very abhorrent, the fact that you are not clarifying that Mr. Shahid Butt actually throughout his whole court process pleaded that he's being tortured, and what's being said is lies. And even to reinforce the fact that for the last 20 years, you haven't mentioned that the fact that he's worked for counter-terrorism, he's worked for the Home Office.
Well, as I said earlier, Shaquille, people can, change over time, of course, and prison might have been an experience where that happened. So he denies, does he, that he was conspiring? Sorry, he denies, does he, that he was conspiring to bomb the British consulate in Yemen?
No, he's always categorically denied that he was involved in any sort of bombing of any sort of institution, organization, or building. The fact that LBC, and I'm an avid listener, and I'm a first-time caller, and I am actually, one of the main founders of the Independent Candidate Alliance, who is actually floating over 40 independent candidates in Birmingham, which Brother Shahid Butt is, which I've won. I find it very peculiar how you fail to tell your audience that Mr. Shahid Butt may have been convicted in Yemen in a kangaroo court in a country's judicial system who we don't understand. But you fail to mention what he's done for the last 20 years.
Well, as I say, people can change their mind, but it is a fact to say. Hang on a sec, Shaquille. It was a fact to say, wasn't it? It's a fact to say that this man was jailed for 5 years in 1999 for conspiring to bomb the British consulate in Yemen.
And it's a fact to say he worked for the Home Office and for counter-terrorism. How come you're not displaying that fact to your audience?
Or how public is that fact that he was working for the Home Office in counter-terrorism?
That's very public. Maybe
he's made it public in the course of his campaign, has he?
He didn't need to make it public in the course of his campaign. I'm sure you can see from many, many media reports.
Why wouldn't you make that public in the course of your campaign?
He has.
So he has made it public in the course of his campaign?
No, the fact I'm saying, why would you wait for him to make it public that he worked for the Home Office and counter-terrorism when he's been saying that and doing that for the last 20 years?
Because a lot of people, Shaquille, who work in counter-terrorism with the Home Office don't normally go around talking about it for fairly obvious reasons. Can I ask you about this event in Birmingham that you were organising, or at least involved in? You talk about the effect on the mosque, which is obviously not good for the people who were there. Why then were there chants of bomb Tel Aviv and the burning of the Israeli flag?
Well, look, that protest was organised not by just myself. It was also organised by my brother, Ahmed Yaqub, who stood in the last mayoral election and took 70,000 votes.
It's great you've talked us through who is involved, but come to what actually happened. Is that something that you would condone as an organiser of it?
What actually happened, Mr. Swarbrick, I will clarify.
Call me Tom, it's much better.
I prefer Mr. Swarbrick, yeah? So, Mr. Swarbrick, the fact what happened was we went outside a place of worship to put a message out that nobody should be coming out of places of worship and protesting. The fact that we had...
nobody should be going outside places of worship and protesting?
No, absolutely not.
What, ever? Anywhere in Britain?
From my stance, I don't believe that anyone should be going outside the place of worship and should be protesting, especially the people who come from the barbaric Israeli establishment who are committing a disproportionate genocide, which is very clear.
What does protest mean in your world? If I stood outside a particular place of worship...
Protest in my world means something very different because in your world, but in my world, what it means is to stand outside a place or institution and show your disgust with the behaviour by the UK establishment and the likes of Keir Starmer, who said that the...
So you're allowed to go outside religious institutions and protest, but I'm not.
We stood outside in solidarity,
So I'm allowed to go and stand outside in solidarity in the place that you worship.
Mr. Swarbrick, you're not actually making sense. We stood yesterday outside the mosque to show solidarity that we are against.
Yes, but you've said, Shakil, that you don't want people in this country to be able to protest outside. To protest, what does that mean? Outside places of worship. Now, I think that. Hang on a sec, Shakil. You're going to have to let me finish the point.
Let me finish, please. Let me finish.
No, I'm going to finish the point. I think in this country, depending on the nature of the protest, you have a right to go outside places of worship and say what you like. It depends on what you say, and it depends on the nature of it. But to say that nobody has the right to go and protest outside a place of worship is, I think, wrong, sir.
Okay, I concur with that. But the fact I would like to clarify, if a Muslim with a Palestine flag went outside a synagogue and chanted from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, it would be considered a hate crime. But for the last 6 months, this mosque in Birmingham has had barbaric Israeli establishment supporters waving Israeli flags saying that we should piss and urinate on the Quran. How does that make sense?
Well, I think then the police might want to take a look, as indeed the police are taking a look at... As indeed, Shakil, police are taking a look at possibly racial or religiously aggravated public order offences following the gathering that you coordinated in Birmingham yesterday.
Well, as you will know, legally, if you are burning a flag, as long as you are not inciting violence or hatred towards a community, and I can tell you yesterday it was only our community there that was there, and I'm sure the police will, carry out due diligence and carry out what they need to.
So if people burned a Palestine flag outside a mosque, that would be fine too, would it?
Sorry?
If people burned a Palestine flag, that would be fine too, would it?
No, it wouldn't be fine.
Well, why is burning the Israeli flag okay, but not the Palestine flag in your world?
Because the Israelis are committing a disproportionate genocide, and if burning a Palestinian flag outside a mosque would incite hatred.
And there, sir, we have two different worldviews, don't we? We have a worldview rooted in the liberty of people to express themselves, albeit in what others may find as a derogatory and offensive way, in a free country, and your insistence that you can do it, but others can't. To you,
you've answered your own question that if somebody was to burn a Palestinian flag outside a mosque, that would constitute a hate crime.
It might or it might not, in the same way that burning an Israeli flag on the streets of Birmingham might or might not.
Can we talk one? Look, if somebody was to burn a Palestinian flag outside a mosque, they'd be directly inciting violence. But when Muslims are burning an Israeli flag outside a mosque, there are no Israelis there.
What if there are
Zionists there?
What if there are? It's a free country. People can move around the city.
Yeah,
they're not prevented from walking past mosques.
The police will have on record that they weren't. And
how do you know? The police go around noting who is from Israel, who is Jewish, who isn't? No, of course not.
We'll just have to wait to see if any arrests are made.
Well, I think we will. Thank you very much indeed for your time.